Prime Minister, he said the same thing. And then it was realized when Narendra Modi became Prime Minister. In fact, he opened it initially in 2018. And so in that waiting room is where Gandhi had 3 questions to answer. Does he pack his bags and go back to India? Because why should he be treated like that? He's a barrister. Should he go on to Pretoria and not mind the insult? Or should he stay and fight this injustice? Those are the 3 questions. And those questions were answered the next day, because the Muslim business people from the top end of Church Street were actually summoned by Dada Abdullah, because Gandhi sent his first deposition, which was a telegram from this office over here to the railway authorities and to Dada Abdullah to explain what has happened. And so Dada Abdullah then asked those business people to come and speak to him. They brought food and they chatted with him, and then he understood some of the indignities that Indian business people were going through at that time. And so he decided that he will stay and fight this injustice. And the next day, Dada Abdullah bought him another ticket, and he left on the train to Pretoria the next evening. Now, the trains those days went up to the border of Natal, which was the old province, and then from there, you had to go by stagecoach. So the train, there was a huge problem with that stagecoach, because again, he had a first-class ticket to sit in the carriage, and the white driver said, no, you must sit outside. And so he sat outside for a while until the guy needed to smoke, and then he actually wanted him to sit on the carriage floor there. And one of the passengers said, why are you harassing the man? He's got a ticket, let him sit inside. And the response was, well, if you want to sit with a coolie, that's up to you. That's why they used to call us coolies in this country. So that incident, we saying, and Gandhi said, was the birthplace of Satyagraha. He said his active non-violence started from that date. Satyagraha was established as a formal policy in 1908 at a meeting in Pretoria. It was actually done in 1906, but at that formal meeting in Pretoria, that is when the mass movement and the mobilization of people started. So this place, Pietermaritzurg, is the place where it happened for Gandhi. If that incident did not happen here, how would history have been? He would have gone on to Pretoria, fought the case, and left for India. And maybe the independence of India would not have happened the way it did. Because when he went back as the Mahatma. Nelson Mandela said when he was released from prison, the first country he visited was India. And he said, I'm here because you gave us Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. We gave you the Mahatma. Yeah. And so he learned his activism here as a young lawyer. I mean, he was only 23 years old when he came here. He said some very bad things when he first came in. He used some language that was not very offensive today, and people were calling him a racist and so on. But his life changed. From 1908, his life changed completely after he interacted with African people here. He was responsible for the formation of the first political organization in this country. The ANC was formed in 1912, the ruling party here. He formed the Natal Indian Congress in 1894, the year after he came here. So his activism actually started way back before he arrived in India. And those experiments that he learned here, that he had here, that kind of thing he translated into the activism that happened in India. And so Maritzburg is a very, very important place in the whole history of not just Gandhi's transformation, but also the history of both this country and India. When you go in now, on the left-hand side is the original waiting room where he spent the night. We've turned that into an exhibition, as I said. It's very interactive. You can press a few gadgets there and ask a few questions. There's also the full movie. Obviously, you don't have the time for it. But we've got 3 movies there that is on there. You can sit down and watch the movie. There are some other interactive computers there where it tells you different stories, especially the story of the 7th of June is told here. And then there's some information on his school records that is in there. He wasn't a very good student. He always said that. He wasn't a very good student. In fact, he wasn't a good lawyer, when he started. But he became this person who represented the interests of so many Indians in this country. So when you finish there, in the middle of the foyer, we have a bust of Gandhi. It's a 2-sided bust. It was the first one in the world. On the front side of it is Mohandas Gandhi, the lawyer. On the side facing us now is the Mahatma. Okay? And then when you go onto the platform itself, there is a plinth that marks the spot where Gandhi was thrown off the train. I know it's cold. I want to tell you one story about that plinth. When Mr. Shekhawat came, he was the Vice President of India in the early 2000s. I don't know if you remember, those of you remember him. He wanted to, in the Indian tradition, he wanted to put flowers and pay homage to the spot. And we didn't know where the spot was. So we got somebody from the university to go and research this thing. He knew where the coal yards were on the platform. And we worked backwards from that to a spot on the platform where we put a plinth to mark this thing. And the interesting thing is that it was unveiled by the Indian cricket team who was playing in the city at the time. Saurav Ganguly was the captain then. And he unveiled that plinth. It marks a spot. It's a spot that every Indian that comes to South Africa, if you know anything about your history, they come here and pay homage at that spot, because that's where it happened, for Gandhiji and for India. So I think you're cold enough. So let's go in. I think let's split ourselves into two groups. If everybody from this gentleman here to the left can go in first to this waiting room, the rest of you will follow Bunny, and we'll go onto the platform. Okay? Maybe you can. Okay, let them go through first, Bunny. Where are all the photographs taken?